Hi, everyone. Welcome to our tour. So if you're watching this recorded, this is going to be a tour of our College of Engineering and Physical Sciences, or what we call CEPS here at UNH. We're going to see a couple different buildings today, specifically those that pertain to engineering, math, physics, and chemistry. But we're also going to be joined by Catherine, who is a student in the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences, but I will let her introduce herself when she signs on. I am going to wait a few minutes just as people start to join us. So bear with me if you hear my intro a few times if you're watching this recorded. We are streaming live, so I am just going to wait for some live participants. I see some of them are jumping on now. So I'm going to start off by encouraging you to leave any and all questions you have for us today in the chat on the side of your screen. We have people that are going to be giving you awesome links and resources that you can check out now or hold on to for later. But also I can see your questions and answer them myself, or I can ask Catherine to answer them for you, as she is a current student in the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences. So if you're interested in anything involving engineering, math, physics, chemistry, there's so many different things that you can do within the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences. But I will let Catherine kick us off and introduce herself and then tell us a little bit where she is right now.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Catherine Carlson. I'm a sophomore here at UNH. I'm a chemical engineering major, and I am from New Boston, New Hampshire. So kind of in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire. Anyways, I am currently standing outside Smith Hall right now. It is our admissions building, and there are also 3 other resources in it. It includes CFAR, which stands for Center for Academic Resources. That you can pretty much just go to for different resources of help with academics. So if you need like peer-to-peer mentoring, you can go to there and they will help you learn how to take notes. So the transition from high school to college can be pretty tricky. So it helps students just kind of get to that transition academically. Another resource is SAS, or Student Accessibility Services. If you notice, if you're come to campus, a lot of our buildings will have a ramp and that is part of what SAS does. They just make sure you can get around campus fairly easily. Last year, my friend broke her ankle and they provided her with crutches and transportation around campus, considering it was in the middle of winter and kind of icy. They will also have you take notes. In a couple of my classes, they hire students to take notes for students who either have broken their arm or need trouble and help taking notes. The third resource is PACS, which is Psychological and Counseling Services. It's just kind of your therapist for campus. And there's 8 sessions included in your tuition every semester. And you can just go to them for different counseling services. And there's also group sessions available as well. So that was just a little bit about Smith, where we're standing. But so for the rest of the tour, I'm going to be talking a lot about CEPS, or the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences, which I'm a part of. And we'll be going to a bunch of different buildings, as Nicole has mentioned. If you have any questions at all, feel free to ask me or type it, and Nicole will ask them for me. And I will try my best to answer as many questions as I can. I do know a fair amount about my college, but there are some that I might not be able to completely answer. There's also 2 other resources on campus: Health and Wellness and SHARP, which is our Sexual Harassment and Rape Prevention Program. They're not related to CEPS, they're related to the campus as a whole, but they're just 2 other student resources here we have on campus. So now that I'm done with all the general resources, we will start heading over to DeMeritt, which is our physics building, and any questions Nicole will ask me.
So we haven't gotten any from anyone yet. I'll remind people. Okay, Lily asked, is there a separate application for CEPS? So there isn't a separate application. There's just one application for all of the majors here at UNH. You are going to be screened through kind of a different process with different standards, just because someone who's looking to go into English writing definitely needs different skills than someone that's going into mechanical engineering. So that's definitely something you can reach out to your admissions counselor about, and they can answer all of your questions about specifics for you. But you are just going to be filling out that one application. That was a great question. Catherine, do you want to talk about how you chose your major and what made you interested in engineering?
Okay, so how I chose my major, kind of cliche. I liked physics and I liked chemistry and I liked math in high school. I had really good teachers for that. I also just, they were easy for me because that's what I understood better than like English and writing. And so I'm like, chemical engineering sounds fancy. So I chose it. I honestly thought that I wouldn't like it before I even got to the college. I'm like, oh, chemical engineering sounds really, really hard. I'm just gonna change my major as soon as I get to UNH. The moment I got to UNH, I talked with my advisor, which I'll talk about later, and he convinced me to stay in the major. And this past couple of weeks, I've been talking to a graduate student who's in UNH or in chemical engineering. And she said kind of like the layout of my major, and I really like it. And now that I'm starting to take classes that are more specific to chemical engineering, not just your basic like calc classes, physics classes, and chemistry, I am really loving what I'm doing. So that's kind of my story. I didn't think I would like it, and now I absolutely love it. And I hope to get my PhD in my major as well.
So do you want to talk a little bit maybe about the classes that you took as a first year student that kind of was your introductory to engineering and physical sciences?
Yeah, so I took Calc 1 and 2 in high school, took the AP test and was able to get credits to pass those classes. So my freshman year, I took Physics 1, Physics 2, General Chemistry, and then I also took, hold on, let's cross the street. And then I also took Differential Equations, which is a sophomore level class, but I took it this past semester as a second semester freshman. But yeah, so just like really general classes, your basic like calc classes, physics. There was, I'd say, like maybe 100 or so kids in those classes. And there was also recitations and labs, which I will mention later.
What's the hardest class that you've taken so far?
Calc 2. I had to take that because of my major. My AP test didn't cover that, so I had to take it freshman year. I think anyone who takes Calc 2, all of my friends in engineering, like we all love math, and everyone says Calc 2 is the hardest. So I was going to the help center a lot for that class, and I love math, but I'd say Calc 2 was definitely the hardest. But if you can get past Calc 2, it's smooth sailing from there.
Do you want to maybe tell us about what you're taking this semester? And also, if you could point out some buildings that you're walking by right now. You're in a really pretty part of campus.
Okay, yeah. We'll just pause here. I want you guys to see T Hall. I should have pointed it out back there, but T Hall is that building over there. It's the like really, it's our clock tower, kind of the center of campus. It's just kind of, I forget what like who's in it. It's like admission or not admissions, but administration. Sorry, administration. But it was the first building on campus. Personally, it's my favorite building on campus because of the clock tower in it. The clock tower and then the bells in it as well. And then also next to us is Merkland, which is classics, languages, and like history majors as well. And what was the other question, Nicole?
I was just wondering what classes you're taking this semester.
Okay, so this semester I am taking Intro to Chemical Engineering, which is my first chemical engineering specific class. I'm also taking Physical Chemistry. So it's like a general chemistry class, but it's a little bit more specific for like chemical engineers, chemists, and bioengineers. Physical chemistry is really cool. We're learning about quantum mechanics at the moment. And my professor is really great. So I love that class that I'm taking right now. And then my two other classes that I'm taking are for our discovery programs. They're like our gen eds we have here. I'm taking a film class, Intro to Film. And then I am also taking germs, which is for my biological discovery. And those are fairly easy compared to my other two classes, but they're also fun within their own rights. So I'm currently standing in front of DeMeritt, our physics building. And I'll talk a little bit more about the academic experience. So like I've said, like there's a ton of like classes you'll take. Most of the classes you'll take freshman year are like the general like calc, chem, physics. And then you'll also be taking your like gen eds and stuff. So that can range anywhere from like math to science to language arts to history. And so as an engineering major, I personally don't like history. So last year I was able to take the history of outdoor pursuits in Northern America. And so basically all I learned how to do was kayaking, like the history of kayaking and the history of skiing. And then we did like presentations on them and watched movies about them. And it was a really fun class. And it covered my history credit. And I was so psyched that I was able to do that. And I'll have to like memorize dates. Also with your classes, they're going to be bigger your freshman year. So like I said, last year, a lot of my classes were 100 or so kids in a giant lecture hall or on Zoom. But this year it ranges from like 25 to 50 in my more specific sophomore level classes. And as I just go up, they're going to get smaller and smaller until it's your major specific. And then you're also going to have recitations and labs for those big classes. So like last year for physics 1 and physics 2, I would have the lecture 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour. And then I would have a recitation for an hour and a half once a week. So I would have them on Thursdays. And then I would have a 3-hour lab once a week as well. So a lot of time spent for one specific class, but that's just for like that one big general class. And those are going to be kind of pretty tricky weed out courses, if you would. And then as you get past that, so last year I had 3 labs. This year I have 1, and it'll get a little easier time wise because then you get to go from a lot of time in class to a lot of time outside of class. So I have a lot more homework this year. So I get to kind of manage my own time and do it that way, which is nice. And I can like do homework outside instead of sitting in a recitation or in like a 3-hour lab 3 days a week. So that's just kind of for that academic experience. There's also advising, which I'll talk about later, and studying abroad, which I can talk about later. But I think Nicole, that's all like good for advising. And then I'm going to show you guys inside DeMeritt. So hopefully the connection stays. And I just need to put on my mask carefully. And we're going to head inside now. So hopefully, I think classes are like general lectures are over at this point. So if we can, I want to show you guys the giant lecture hall I took my physics classes in. I'm just going to peek in briefly to see if there is a class in there. I don't think there is. And I know it's again hard to see, are slightly off, but if you kind of want to pan this chemistry room or physics room I was in last year. So a lot of students, because of COVID, it was spread out, which was nice in that regard. But for most of you, your freshman year here, you will have a lot of students in this room if you're taking, a general physics class. But that's just a typical size of a lecture hall for one of those general classes. Is the connection okay, Nicole?
You were a little laggy in the lecture hall, but we're doing better out here, and it was great when you were outside as well.
Okay. So we're just going to go upstairs to show you a little bit more lab spaces, and then a couple like workspaces as well. So that's just kind of a lounge area for students to work on homework in the physics building. And then we have like a conference room in here. And then some more offices down here. In the physics labs will look like a conference room because there isn't a ton of like actual things you need to do for physics. So the like bigger like labs will be in chemistry, or not chemistry, Kingsbury, but also Parsons for chemistry as well. Do we have any questions, Nicole?
No, not right now. I definitely want to encourage people, if you have any questions, especially while we're in any of these buildings, if you're wondering like where classes are, where offices are, what kind of classrooms you might have, definitely drop us a question. I definitely agree, Catherine. My physics labs were in what kind of looked like a classroom because we were with like pendulums and stuff like that, where my chemistry labs were in a little bit more of like what I would think of as a lab space.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so we'll be walking towards Conant now, and I can talk about study abroad and the honors program. So study abroad and the honors program are both housed in Conant, which is this brick building behind me. So for study abroad for STEP students, it can be very tricky because our schedules are very rigorous. And so if you want to study abroad, make sure you come into the school knowing that, so you can talk to your advisor and really plan that with your schedule on when you're going to study abroad. For me, I knew I wanted to study abroad, but with COVID, it was really tricky. And so I talked to my advisor about studying abroad, and he said I could study abroad junior year once COVID is over, and because those classes are easier to take in different countries. But he said I'd be taking organic chemistry in another country. And I don't know if any of you have heard about Orgo or organic chemistry, but it's one of the hardest classes in the chemistry department. And it's a little nerve-wracking to be taking that in general, let alone not in America. So I decided to study abroad either in the summer or the winter. And I'm still talking to my advisor about where to go, what countries I can do. And you can take a lot of your discovery courses in other countries. So as long as you plan it and talk with your advisor, you can totally make studying abroad work as a STEP student. But again, you have to talk to your advisor and talk to the study abroad advisor you have in your department. Each department in SEPS has its own study abroad advisor. So there's two people, your own advisor and study abroad advisor, that you can talk to about study abroad. For the honors program, it's a little bit more rigorous than the actual just general program here at UNH. You don't have to apply to it. You get chosen to be in the honors program. I personally was not chosen to be in the honors program, but my roommate, she's an environmental engineer with a sustainability dual major. She is in the honors program and she does a lot of work. So I'm kind of thankful I was not in the honors program, if I'm being honest, because as much as, school is fun and like we love learning, I am at college, so I wanted to, hang out with my friends, and she would be studying a lot. But as much work as the honors program is, it does look really good and does help you get a lot of internships. For example, my roommate has an internship with the Sustainability Institute this year, and she's like working with them, doing a lot of different cool projects with them. And if anyone has any questions, I can talk more about that as well. But so study abroad and honors program, highly recommended to do it in their own regard. But they do have their own pros and cons, so to speak. So now we're gonna head over to Kingsbury. So we're in the academic core of UNH. So we'll just kind of pan around to show all the buildings you see in the camera are academic buildings.
Catherine, someone wants to know if it's a long walk between your classes.
Not really. UNH is designed to be a walking campus. And I will say every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I go from my physical chemistry lecture to my intro to chemical engineering lecture. One is in Parsons, which is on one side of campus, and one is in New Hampshire Hall, which is on the complete opposite side of campus. So there's a group of us chemical engineers walking from one building to the other. And I'd say it takes us roughly 7 minutes in the 10-minute time frame we have between classes. So, 7 minutes can seem like a pretty long walk, but in regards to, maybe other schools or like a giant city, overall, it's not a super long walk. And we are able to make it from one side of campus to the other with enough time to spare.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the buildings we're walking by, even though they're not necessarily SEPs?
Yeah, so if you pan over there, the giant smokestack, that is our cogeneration plant, or the jewel of sustainability here at UNH. If you take an actual tour at UNH, we talk a lot about sustainability. And Nicole loves sustainability, so any sustainability questions you can ask Nicole. It isn't SEPs related, but I mean, sustainability and environmental engineering and environmental sciences can be related. So I guess in a way. We're also next to Redmond and Spalding, which are life sciences buildings. So that isn't in SEP specifically. That is in our COLSLA or College or COLA, College of Life Sciences and Agriculture. And there's a tunnel underneath that connects the two, which is a cool kind of design. If you need to get from building to building and it's winter, you can just go underneath the tunnel instead of walking out into the freezing cold. Also, fun fact, Spalding has had a multi-million-dollar renovation this past couple of years. So if you look over here, it's starting to look much better. But the path, like when I toured here, I'd say 2 years ago till now, it's been under construction. But so hopefully in a year and a half, it's gonna look pristine and done. This building over here, that is Morse. It is for space sciences and physics. It has a lot of different lab spaces in there. My friend, his older brother, was able to work on a project that involved making equipment to send to NASA. I haven't been able to talk to him since then, but he was going to send this object that he built in that building up into space and test it for a company that works for NASA. So pretty cool stuff. The higher up you get, he was a junior when he was completing that. And it was separate research done with one of his professors. Now we are starting to come to Kingsbury Hall, which is where all the engineering departments are hosted. So this is engineering. So from chemical engineering, civil engineering, electrical, mechanical, bioengineering, and then computer science and IT. This is all hosted or located in Kingsbury Hall. So I'll stand out here and talk about advising a little bit more. Like I mentioned earlier, you have your main advisor. They will help you pick your classes. So my advisor, my freshman year, he was the head of the chemical engineering department. And he has helped me pick all of my classes the past couple semesters, and he is great. I know a lot of advisors, especially in SEPs, cannot seem super approachable, but day one, he showed up in jeans and a baseball cap. And from then on, I knew he was like very approachable. I've gone to him about a ton of questions. I'm looking into researching this year for a paid research opportunity. And I've been talking to him a lot about that. And so advising can really, as long as you utilize it and go to your advisor with any questions you have, you can develop a really great relationship with them. And then they can write you letters of recommendation for different internships. And they can provide you with different opportunities, different insights about an assortment of different things for classes, but also work opportunities and different questions relating to your major. And every major has its own advisor. So my advisor was in the chemical engineering department. Like I said, head of chemical engineering. So like my friend who's in mechanical engineering, her advisor will be in the mechie department. So completely separate from my advisor because of the different majors. And like I said earlier, for study abroad, you'll have a completely different advisor for that, specific for study abroad. Yeah, so we can walk through Kingsbury for a little bit. Is there any questions before I head in, Nicole?
No, not right now. I do want to add to the whole story. I know someone who, as a senior mechanical engineering major, he was discussing his interests with his advisor of what he specifically wanted to do with his degree, what he was interested in. And his advisor actually knew somebody like in the field, in the real world, that worked on exactly what he wanted to do. So he connected them, and that's actually how he got an internship. So your advisor not only is a great resource because they know what classes you need to take and have seen 100 other students with your major go through the same process, but they're also like real live people in the field. A lot of times have experience or at least know people that do. So it's also a great resource when you're looking for like professional skills and networking and things like that as well.
So this is a cafe, Albert's Cafe, located in Kingsbury Hall. Nicole, is the connection good in here, or is it a little iffy?
It is a little iffy. If you want to just walk through, Catherine, I can maybe talk while you're walking, and that way we can just kind of see as much of the building as possible. So I think that we might have lost them for a little bit. So we usually do lose cell phone connection in this little area of the engineering building, which is totally fine. So while we're waiting for Zach and Catherine, I will just talk a little bit more about the building that they're in right now. So what you saw right when they walked in is Albert's, it's called. It's one of our cafes on campus. So that is where you can grab anything from sushi, sandwiches, salads, coffee, bagels. Between classes, I personally went to Albert's, I think like every Tuesday before calc, and I would get a bagel, and that would be my breakfast for the day. You can use the money that's part of your dining plan at Albert's. So if you just need a caffeine fix, or if that's how you're going to get breakfast or lunch, then it's really accessible. Super easy, especially as a SEP student, you're going to be spending a bunch of time in Kingsbury, most likely. Otherwise, we have them in our business school, also in the library. So there's all around campus. That way you can kind of get wherever you need to be. But also, as we were walking through the engineering building, just a little bit more about it. It's 3 floors, which is huge. It looks like it could be its own high school sometimes, but gets a little turned around. But I promise after the first couple of weeks, you'll get your way. Awesome class space. There's 2 large lecture halls like the ones that we saw earlier in DeMeritt, our physics building. But there's also some smaller classroom space, labs, lounges specific to different majors with computers, with programs that you might need. Also a library specific to engineering and math. So if you need any kind of resource that you think would only be available in somewhere specific and the librarians can help you with that, then you can definitely go to that library. It's also the library that's open the latest on campus. So it is just really popular for kids doing homework. But I will give it back to Catherine. She's standing outside of our engineering building, and she'll be able to keep filling you guys in on everything SEPs.
Yes, thank you, Nicole. So like Nicole was saying earlier, for Albert's Cafe, we passed that. That's just one of the many cafes we have on campus. I personally haven't been to Albert's Cafe yet, but now that I have given this tour, I need to go and try it out. So there's a ton of spaces, like Nicole said, in Kingsbury. It is a very big building, so you can't get turned around easily. But it ranges from different labs to different classroom sizes to like just little offices to any lounge spaces you have outside. Another thing I wanted to point out is, as STEP students, your ID, you can swipe into Kingsbury at any time during the day. So it's really nice if you need to study really late at night, you can swipe into Kingsbury, go in and study, and just be there, hopefully not all night because you do need sleep. But if your like roommates like really loud or hosting a party, let's say you need to study, it's just another option you have to do so. And like I said, it's only for SEP students specifically.
Catherine, what's your go-to spot to study on campus?
I will say my go-to spot is my dorm room. I was lucky enough to have a roommate in SEPs that was had a similar study habits and schedule as mine. And I have all these sticky notes on my desk that have every task I have written down. So that's a study habit I strongly suggest for students. Just buy a ton of sticky notes, write down all your homework assignments, and just stick it to your desk. There's like, I'd say 20 sticky notes on my desk. It's kind of comical. My friends make fun of me a lot about it. But my desk is my go-to study spot, but also the lounge in my building. I live in Handler Hall. It's one of the Sercs buildings, so one of the newer dorms built on campus. And so I've started going to the lounge for that just like dead quiet space to, when I need to write anything, write my lab reports, I'll go there as well. I will say before we get to Parsons, this is Parsons, our chemistry building. But so for living as a SEP student, there is a couple living options where you will be with other SEP students. It's called the Inception floor. They tried to fit SEPs, CEPS, into that name. And it's a floor in Handler Hall and the other hall, which houses SEPs and honors program. I am blanking at the name at the moment. But it was nice because I was able to make all my friends that way as a freshman, especially last year with COVID when we weren't able to go out a lot. I made this really great friend group, all of which are engineering majors. We're all different. I'm chemical, some are mechanical, and some are environmental. But so we were all in the same general classes last year, physics, calc, chemistry. And it was nice as a freshman to have friends you lived with and lived on your floor that you could just easily go to with homework help, or like we're also struggling with the same problems as you. And it's a nice moral support and just way to meet friends who have your similar interests. And as a SEP student, it was really nice to meet friends who were like loved math, were in the engineering program that had that drive to be SEP students in the first place. So I just wanted to touch on that because that's a really nice aspect on campus that I liked, and I was able to really utilize that to my benefit. So now I'm standing outside Parsons, which is our chemistry building. Like I've said before, I've had a good amount of classes in here. I have my physical chemistry class in Parsons, and last year I had my general chemistry class in Parsons as well. Parsons has a lot of like chemistry labs that like you'll see with like all the different like fancy lab things and lab work and like giant hoods. I know a lot of high school classrooms will have like one big hood in their chemistry rooms. These chemistry labs have like 5 around the whole room. And so for different clubs on UNH, there's a ton of different clubs that like you can like go online and look up, but there are also academic specific clubs. I am in the Society of Women Engineers, or SWE for short, and it's not specific to UNH. There's a whole, we're just the UNH chapter, and it's for the whole nation as a whole. And there's a giant conference that we can go to every year where we get to talk to a ton of other people in SWE, or the Society of Women Engineers, and it's all females in engineering and physical sciences. And it's a really great networking tool, not just the conference, but also the club as a whole. The grad student I mentioned earlier who was in my major, I was able to meet her through this club. And if it wasn't for this club, I wouldn't have met Katie, this grad student in chemical engineering, and would not have learned how much I would have liked my major. And so this club really has helped me a lot in that regard, but also I've made other friends within this club. And it's just a nice place to go to, especially as a female in SEPs. You can go to it and there's just a ton of other females there as well, who sometimes like we all understand that if you're in a recitation or a lab and it's all guys and sometimes they're not listening to you, like they all understand that. And it's a nice place to kind of talk about that and get help for that, as well as networking for different internships, different job opportunities. And like I said, talking to other people in your major that you might not know from your different classes. So that's just one of the clubs that we have here at UNH. It's the only academic club I am in because as a SEP student, I don't have a ton of time for any other clubs. I'm a tour guide, I'm in SWE, and I'm a chemical engineering major. And then I work out and hang out with my friends. That's kind of what my schedule consists of, as well as eating and sleeping. So not a ton of time because a lot of time is given towards homework, but there is a ton of other clubs and opportunities that you can look up online For example, there's different robotics clubs. There is a chemical engineering specific club that builds a car based on a reaction. And so every year there's like a different reaction and they research it and they have to make this car go and stop with this different chemical reaction. And then there's just a ton of other academic clubs, from more social to more networking to more research based. And again, like I said, there's a list online that you can look for all of those clubs. And briefly, before we go into Parsons, I want to point out there's 2 other facilities on campus that we won't see today. The Chase Chase Ocean building, which is for like our ocean engineers. And I did research in that a lot last year. And as a freshman, research is a really big thing I was able to be a part of that I'll talk about a little after. But so Chase Ocean Engineering, there's a giant wave pool. And so we were able to test different things in that wave pool. And it's, I'd say 100 meters long or something. It's a fairly like long, maybe not 100 meters, but I forget the exact number, but it's a long wave pool for testing different things on like ocean waves, and the waves can go different heights and varying heights. And then there was also a giant just water tank in the building, and it was a very deep water tank specific for testing things with pressure, just like any different giant thing you need to kind of submerge underwater to test for lakes or oceans or rivers. It was just a really cool building that has water design things in it, I guess. But so for my research that I did last year, I was in the Innovation Scholars Program. And so that's a program as freshmen you can join. And there are 4 different cohorts in it. I was in the ocean engineering one, but there's also an electrical engineering one. There's a biology and like field studies one, and then a mechanical engineering one. So kind of very broad based on different all majors of SEPs. And so the ocean engineering one, I was in Chase, like I said before, and we were able to build our sensor, and we had a ton of other like little sensors in it, and we built it and we drove out to Hampton Beach and we submerged it in the water based on a telephone pole. Like we stuck it to a telephone pole and submerged the sensors that were coming out of the box in the water. And then we left for the night, and then we came back while it collected data. It turned off in the middle of the night, so our data was kind of pointless, but overall the experience that I got as a freshman and able to make that, build it, and deploy it all by myself with 3 other freshmen, with not a ton of help, just a grad student kind of making sure we were on the right path, was a really great experience for research. And it made me realize that I want to do research more, and that I want to go into a research-based career instead of like an institution-based career, or as on a processing line as a chemical engineering major. So research, like I said, is a really big thing here on campus, and any questions I can answer more about. But I want to point out that UNH is a R1 institution, and we have a land, sea, and space grant for research here on campus. So in New Hampshire, it is one of the best research institutions in New Hampshire. The other building that I was mentioning before is our flow physics facility. It is a giant wind tunnel, basically, and it is the only one of its type within the world, pretty much. And so like Nike has come and has tested things in that facility here on the UNH campus. And it's kind of over in the back corner by the Chase Ocean Engineering facility. But it's just like this giant wind tunnel that you can do research in if you so choose to, or you can test objects in, and different professors will be doing different research experiments in that tunnel. And it's just another cool resource we have here on campus. And it just goes to show how much kind of money is given to the campus for research, and especially the SEPS program or the SEPS college. There's a ton of different research opportunities, and anything you like, ranging from ocean, like I said, to space, like my friend's brother, to the flow physics facility with like this giant wind tunnel. So are there any questions, Nicole, before I show them inside Parsons?
Sure. So someone did ask, not particularly related to research, but someone was asking about how accessible the professors are.
They're very accessible. So a lot of professors will have office hours. So if you have a question on your homework or on your class, you can go to their office hours. And most professors are very friendly, and they want students to come to their office hours and ask them the questions. They want their students to succeed. A lot of my professors, I've been going to their office hours, and they're, like, welcome, what's your name? How can I help you? And it's very easy to talk to them. I will say there's also TAs. So a lot of the big classes, such as calc, chemistry, and physics in your freshman year, you'll have a teaching assistant, which is a graduate student. So it's not your professor, it's kind of like a step below. And they are a little bit more approachable. If your professor doesn't seem super approachable, they will also be like hosting office hours, and you can go to them with any questions. And they will also be in your recitations and your labs, and they will lead your recitation and labs. So you can go to them for any questions within the class, but also any questions within kind of your major or like internships. So between your TAs, your professors, and your advisors, there's a lot of different people you can go to for any questions you might have. I hope that answered their question. Are there any other questions?
I think that was great. That's the only one that we have right now. I did put some links in the chat for the chemistry fraternity, just to give another example of an academic club. I put the link to the Society for Women Engineers as well. And then also about the REAP program, the first year research experience, just so you know what's going on in the chat.
Yes, I also will say briefly on the REAP, it's a first year summer research experience. My infamous roommate, who has done all this stuff, she did REAP this past summer, and she lived on the UNH campus and was able to research how estrogen goes into fish. And like she showed me her project, and it was this really cool thing that she did all by herself. So I will say that's another really great research experience and a good example of the different research programs within the research department that you can choose from. So if there's no other questions, I will show them Parsons briefly.
All right, so as they're walking through, I'll kind of describe what Catherine is showing you guys. So this is kind of the main lobby. Parsons is shaped like a big U, so it does take a little bit to get used to, like any other new school does, but I think it makes sense now that I've been around it a lot. But Catherine's walking down one of the two long hallways, so you're going to see some classrooms, some student workspaces that look like conference rooms. I've had like study groups in those, but also I've seen them for club meetings. So say you're interested in that, like chemistry fraternity that I was talking about, that could be a room that they rent out to have club meetings, or if you just want to study with friends, you can reserve them as well. But on that note, that kind of talks exactly about peer-led team learning is a program within the chemistry department at UNH, where for general chemistry and for organic chemistry, they are peers. So students that have already taken the class, upperclassmen, they volunteer their time to teach and kind of mentor younger students. So when I was an organic chemistry student, I would go once a week to this study group in Parsons Hall, and they would have practice problems and worksheets, and also it was a really great time to ask questions. So even though I already had office hours for my TA, for my professor, it was just another really great resource to work through questions that I had on the homework. But it was also just really nice to be able to kind of walk things through with students, because you kind of get to see other people's learning processes. But then I actually came back afterwards and I became a peer-led team learning mentor. So that made me able to mentor other students that were younger than me and taking organic chemistry for the first time. So it's a really great way to get some experience on both ends, especially if you're interested in something in education. It's definitely an easy way to get your foot in the door. But also for most of us who just really wanted some extra help with chemistry, they recognize that the department does, that chemistry is a problem for a lot of students, as it should be. It's a hard class. So they've made these study groups in not only general chemistry, but also in organic. So while you can go to office hours and you can like do whatever you need to do, study on your own, you also have those really great resources. So we are passing what was just kind of the lab wing of Parsons. So the first floor is the general chemistry labs. They have those hoods like Catherine was talking about. And then it's actually interesting, right above them is the organic chemistry labs. So I remember I took those one after the other and you kind of like moved upstairs. It felt symbolic in a way. But in my organic chemistry lab, I think there was like 6 or 8 hoods in one room. It felt super serious to me. But it was definitely very difficult, as Catherine's described, but it's also kind of makes me feel like I achieved something now that I've been through it. But now Catherine's outside, so I'll let her go back to telling you more about SEPs.
Awesome. So, yep, organic chemistry is a infamous class, not just at UNH, but just in general. So we just walked through Parsons. So if it wasn't too laggy, we tried to show you some different conference rooms. There's a couple labs on the first floor, but most of the labs, like Nicole said, are on the second floor, with all the hoods. But so Nicole, if we have enough time, I just wanted to show them Handler, where the inception floor is, just briefly, just like to show them the building, but also, so like, do we have time or should I just kind of recap it briefly?
Yeah, we have 14 minutes, so I think that would be awesome. Kind of also answering someone's question before of how long your walk is. That was your commute from class to your dorm. So yeah, I think that'd be a great thing to show.
Yeah, of course. So just before we go over there, I just wanted to recap. I talked about different academic advising with your advisor, the study abroad advisor, different professors, how they have office hours, as well as TAs, teaching assistants, how they'll have office hours as well. And then different class sizes. Your freshman year classes are going to be a lot bigger than your sophomore and junior, senior classes. And your freshman year will also have a lot of lecture based, whereas sophomore and up is going to be a lot of lab and recitation based, and a lot more homework the higher you go up in level as well. Different research opportunities here at UNH. There is a ton. There's a ton. That's all I can say really, without getting too in depth about it. And then just different things about SEPs in general between different clubs and different opportunities. So now we're going to take the walk. I do this walk reverse every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from my dorm, which was on the Inception floor, but now I live 2 floors above in Handler Hall. So same room, just 2 floors above. I go from Handler Hall to Parsons every morning. So we're just going to do that walk. And I've timed it. It's roughly like a 3-4 minute walk, not super long. So it's nice to wake up, just kind of have my oatmeal, my coffee briefly, and then just kind of roll out of bed and go to class. And it's nice to live on the Inception's floor. They're located in the dorms closest to Parsons and Kingsbury, which is here on my right as well. And also there's a dining hall, Philbrook Dining Hall, which is located on my left through the trees. We won't show you that, but if you ever decide to come to campus, you can see Philbrook and hopefully go in and eat a little bit inside Philly. So I like this walk personally. I'm also biased because I've lived in Handler, which is that glorious building there on the corner, but I've lived in Handler the past 2 years. I think it's one of the nicest dorms on campus, but again, I'm biased.
Catherine, somebody has a question for you.
Yeah.
So somebody was asking, do most students have a designated major when they start, or do they come in as undecided?
So I will say most students come in with a major like myself, but there is an undecided advisor for the students who come in undecided. And most students will come in undecided within a specific college. So my friend last year, he came in undecided within the Sercs college, and he was taking different classes specific to like just the Sercs college in general. So like an intro to engineering, your basic calc class, your basic physics classes, just the classes that spread a lot of different majors. And he was able to figure out what major he wanted to choose from. So it is perfectly normal and acceptable to come in undeclared within the Sercs college. And it's, if you don't know what you're doing, it's easy to change majors as well. Because like I said, that first year, a lot of your classes will be the same. Me and my mechie friend and our environmental engineering friends, we were all in the same classes. And so it spread a lot of different majors. So we'll cross the street just to give you the full experience. But like I said, like a 3-minute walk, if that, and it's to Handler Hall, which is here on the corner. We're in the Sercs, which is just one of the residential pockets on campus. And it stands for Southeastern Residential Corner. And so this first floor, kind of on that other end of Handler, that's the inception floor, and that's where I was last year. And like I said, it's just a bunch of engineering majors living on the same floor, and you can apply to live on that floor for that residence hall. And it's in Hubbard, which is the other building I just remembered, which is located on the other side of Philly, and then Handler, which is what I'm standing in front of at the moment. So if there's no other questions, I think I can do a quick wrap up and then end it, unless I missed anything major, Nicole, that you can remind me of.
No, I think you're all set. I'll definitely let you know if you get any more questions.
Okay, awesome. So I kind of did a recap over by Parsons. But so just to kind of finish it up, I'll say why I choose UNH in general. So I chose UNH because as an engineering student, I was looking between 3 schools: UNH, WPI, and UMass Amherst. And UNH out of those 3 just fit the best. It was not too big, not too small. For me, where I lived, it was a perfect location. Not too far, but not like super close. And I really liked the research that they had here as well. And it was a big campus, but not like too big of a campus, but a good sized campus with a lot of opportunities. And if I wanted to change my major, I had that freedom to do so. And I wasn't stuck in an engineering specific school. Not just the other 2 schools are absolute great schools. UNH just was a perfect fit for me in that regard. And I also just fell in love with the campus in general. And I know through video, it's a little tricky to see it. So hopefully, if you do get the opportunity to come to campus, I highly suggest to do so, because it is, again, I'm biased, but it's a really pretty campus, especially with the new fall season coming up and all the leaves changing. But so if there's no further questions, I'm going to wrap it up, just wrap up the tour, and hopefully everyone enjoyed learning more about Sercs. And if they didn't know anything about it, now they know more about our College of Engineering and Physical Sciences.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine, for joining us today, and to everybody who watched this live or is going to watch it recorded. We're so glad that you got some more information. Please reach out to an admissions counselor if you have any specific questions. Check out their website for any more information about Sercs that you want to find out, or about housing or anything else. Also, if you want to subscribe to this channel, we're going to be putting out a couple more live tours this semester and then going into the spring as well, so you can learn about different parts of campus, not just necessarily Sercs. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys for joining us today, and I hope everybody here has an awesome day.